Kia ora, ko Ben Taylor, toku ingoa. I'm from the Westpac ESG advisory team, and I'm joined by Joe Sheridan, who's the demonstration manager at our farm, which is a dairy farm located in the Waikato. Joe has recently been through the Westpac Sustainable Farm Loan Audit process, which is undertaken by Assure Quality, and she's going to share how that process went and some useful learnings to help with anyone coming through an upcoming audit. So firstly, Joe, can you just talk a little bit about obviously the thinking and planning process that obviously you've been going through at our farm, and then how that went into getting everything documented as required for the audit?
Thanks, Ben. So the actual audit process was fairly simple. Being able to attach and insert the right documents in the right place and fill in the right forms, etc. The thinking that goes into providing information for those documents is probably a longer term process. So when we engaged with the sustainable loan, it triggered a whole series of thought processes and questions about our business and some of the risks that were there and some of the opportunities. And for the last 2 years for that lead-in, we've been accumulating information and data to help us make an informed choice around some of that stuff. So when it came to the audit, there were probably 2 key areas that we had to put our thinking to paper, which was in the climate change adaptation space and in the greenhouse gas mitigation strategy. Those are probably the 2 areas that we had to consolidate all our thinking and put it into documents that we could share in order for that to be audited.
Perfect. And I suppose to do that process, to get that documented, you use the templates from Assure Quality to go through that. How were those templates useful to actually get that documented?
Well, so it's a bit daunting to start with. Like, it seems like a lot of questions and a lot of boxes to fill in. And what I kind of found is that when you actually go through it, it's a really good way to pull all those ideas and that thinking from your brain and your discussions and your planning into a really nice, clean framework. So when it looked at your personal situation, what were the resources that you had at your disposal? What was your vulnerability to some of the change? And then you started to analyse it as a risk or an opportunity. It made it a whole lot easier when it came to thinking about, well, what would I do in response to that? And so then when you create a plan and actions, given your knowledge of what you've currently got and your best guess of what's going to happen, it made it a lot easier and a lot less daunting to put it all down on paper. So it was actually a really useful template. Both of them were really good to use.
Okay, and that's great to hear. And I suppose those plans, that they are structured, and it's just getting that in a form that's documented. That what is the actions are required, who is going to take those, and what the time is. So it's just a format to document probably a lot of the good stuff that's going on, and in terms of what farms have already done. In terms of our farm, it's part of Fonterra Co-op for Difference. What were the gaps between Fonterra Co-op for Difference and Westpac Sustainable Farm Loan that you needed to focus on a little bit?
Well, the good thing is we went through the audit process, Ben, it was easy to see that all the work that we're doing for the cooperative difference aligned perfectly with the audit process. So that was really great. We've already talked about the greenhouse gas mitigation plan and the climate change adaptation. So they were, of course, 2 gaps that we were supported with documentation from Westpac to do. So that was really great. The other areas that we provided information outside of our farm environment plan, which is in the cooperative difference, was what we call an integrated planting plan. So we've devised a plan that captures our planting for biodiversity, our riparian planting, our shade and shelter objectives. And that was all in a format that we had done, I think it was about 4 years ago. And that was actually really valuable to communicate through the audit process what our plans were there. So that was one piece of documentation. The other one that we had to put together and share was our job training matrix. So we needed to be able to show how we were setting our team up for success when it came to achieving our animal wellbeing outcomes. And a lot of that is about the training, the skills that they need, and then being able to document that as well. So those are probably the 2 areas, the 2 bits of documentation that were sort of outside of that.
Okay, perfect. And is there any other sections for the audit that you think other farms may need to spend some more time on to develop that required evidence, around like animal welfare or any other sections like that?
I think most farmers will be putting together an animal wellbeing plan with their vets, so that's a really good source of information. The two key areas really are about the greenhouse gas, the mitigation, and then the climate change adaptation. They're probably the two big gaps for most farmers. Most of the other stuff is just about accessing and providing documentation of the good stuff that they're already doing in that space. Yeah.
Perfect. And so lastly, just to summarize, what would be your top tips for someone that's about to start or about to go through the audit process?
Just start then. I think what we found really useful is when we saw the framework and saw how well it was aligned with what we're already doing, there was a real natural fit. We wanted to be able to extract value from the things that we were already investing in our farm business. So that was a really nice natural fit. So most people who are on the journey will know that there's a really nice fit there. They just have to start being able to communicate what they're doing in that space. Get your hands on the documents and understand what the questions are, because when you see the templates and you start looking for what are the changes I'm seeing in my system, you start looking for the information and the data that would support your decision making. That's a really good place to start. Have a look at them, read through it, and then start thinking about it over the next couple of months prior to your audit. Put pen to paper, start your first draft and share it with someone. And ask them, does this speak to what we're trying to do on our farm? Does this talk to the risks and opportunities that we have? And get a bit of feedback from them. Could be another farmer, it could be somebody in your Westpac team that can help you with that. And then start to consolidate that to a point where it becomes an action plan. And then, you're kind of ready to go through the audit process.
Perfect. And yeah, it's a great summary. Just start and then you'll be able to put pen to paper, fill in the gaps, and there's plenty of kind of people around that will be able to help. So that is really great. And thanks for your time today, Jo, and sharing your knowledge. So I appreciate it. Kia ora.
You're welcome, Ben. Kia ora.